There's still continuing fallout from Trump's visit to the National Association of Black Journalists. And yes, there are a number of people that are being critical of the journalists and feeling that maybe some of the questions were leading and all along those lines. And definitely there's a number of folks that are trying to figure out what Trump was thinking about when he made these comments about whether Vice President Kamala Harris, who is now the presidential candidate, had been more in the Indian space before actually being involved in the African American space. And as Rick Rosner did point out, she is a member of a predominantly African American sorority, the AKA sorority, and she did go to Howard University, which is an HBCU, and has definitely done a number of other things, including being with a number of organizations that are African American in focus and all along those lines. As one that's got a journalism background, I can tell you that there are some folks that are maybe being fair in their criticism of the way that the journalists presented the questions and all along those lines, but it was folks that were representing various mediums, because I think there was a person there from Fox, there was ABC, which took a lot of the fire from presidential candidate and former President Trump and all along those lines. And I believe the other reporter was actually an online reporter, but Rick can correct me on that if I am wrong. But I do know that there were three different means of everything in that space. And like I said, Sasha Starr is here with us as well. And maybe they've got some thoughts about this particular thing. A lot of people are saying that it was a train wreck in the making and all along those lines. And there were a number of questions, that question of where she was from or who she identifies with and all along those lines was just part of the conversation that got former President Trump in hot water. And all along those lines, there was also some questions around immigration and the notion of black jobs, which apparently are any jobs, because he even said that it was any job. And I assume he meant any job that an African American holds is a black job, but that's not what he said. He said literally any job is a black job in that space. But now they're getting themselves in some other interesting hot water and everything, because J.D. Vance has come up, because there is now a prisoner that I think is going to release both Evan Gershkovich as well as Paul Whelan. And J.D. Vance is saying that Donald Trump deserves credit for the release of Evan Gershkovich and the other release from the Russian prisons. He says, we certainly want these Americans to come back home, but we have to ask ourselves, why are they coming home? And I think it's because bad guys all over the world recognize Donald Trump's about to be back in office, so they're cleaning house. So that's a good thing, and I think it's a testament to Donald Trump's strength.
That's stupid. You know who had 0 prisoner exchanges while he was president with Russia? Trump. We've had, I think, 4 now. We had Griner. We had Trevor Reed. 3 exchanges. 2 in 2022 for 3 people, and then this latest one. Trump never pulled off any of them.
Right. That's interesting and everything, but it'll be interesting how they keep trying to put things out there. I did watch some of the response, because already they are trying to push back on what happened at the journalism conference and everything along those lines. And I did see some, because yes, there are people even in the conservative camp that are African American, and some of them were trying to come to Trump's defense, and they did kind of pick on the journalists and say that the journalists were asking leading questions, and even as
well, just because Trump never answers questions or never gets asked questions that he should be asked by journalists who are friendly to him, right. That it's ridiculous. You can ask the guy questions.
Yeah,
and one of them was a friendly. Harris Faulkner is a very conservative, very pro-Trump, very pro-Republican anchor on Fox News, and even she was so shocked by Trump's behavior that in the middle of the thing, she said, "Oh my goodness," at how rude he was being. So there are 96 days to go. I hope he holds one of these things every day from now till the election.
I think Trump understands already that there is no way he can win this election. This is a behavior of defeated, old, not very clever man who is desperately trying to get attention to himself, and J.D. Vance trying to help him any way he can. But they are two losers. And there is really very little to discuss about them because they don't have any programs, they don't have any positive message to their electorate. Nothing, zilch. So he's playing whether Kamala Harris is Indian or she's black or both or whatever. This is a message for nominee for the president to its electorate. It's a joke. He's playing an old card when he was saying that Obama was not born in the United States and therefore he should never be the president or so. He's playing the same old shtick, which is now well over 10 years old. And I really don't see how they can win. Are they going to get women voters? No. Are they going to black voters? No. Color voters? No. I don't see their electorate and this, even his base. I'm pretty sure they're already getting tired of him. And this is the last grasp. He's trying to invent something. The color of Kamala Harris. And come on, this is nonsense, really. Now, about prisoner exchange between Russia and the United States, yes, I agree. Trump had nothing to do whatsoever with that. Now, Putin wanted to test the water that he's perceived because of this Ukrainian war. He's perceived as a person who cannot keep any agreements, international including and so on. So he is not supposed to be a person to talk about the peaceful solution for Ukraine or anything like that. So he gave, see, once they killed Navalny, there is no more danger to release other prisoners like Gershkovich and so on, because they cannot create any damage for Putin and his regime. So he can release hundreds of these prisoners, thousands, tens of thousands. It doesn't matter to him. Navalny was the only one who could actually inflict any damage to his regime, but he's dead. And in fact, the exchange could have not been arranged while Navalny was still alive. So while Navalny was killed, now the exchange could have been arranged, and it was arranged. Hallelujah. Okay, well done. Everybody happy. That's good. Now, another thing what we absolutely haven't discussed on any of our shows is the situation with Israel, who inflicted incredible damage to Iran and its proxies. And now Iran is telling that it's going to do something against Israel and so on. You know what? It's just a talk. Just try. Just trying to see what's going to happen to you. So all this now provide a lot of credibility, power to Israel, and Israel means business. All the enemies who are inflicting damage to Israel and Israelis, they all will be killed one by one. It will take some time, or it will happen very quickly, but that's going to be done. And international opinion and all this cries about the babies being killed and all this stuff, it's all garbage. It doesn't mean anything. Israel has to do its job, and it's doing it.
So they killed the head Hamas guy. How many more head Hamas people are there?
They're all will be killed, doesn't matter.
No, I mean, well, but like, has its leadership capability been truly hurt? Or
this one was really dangerous because he was one who was planning all the Hamas attack, and therefore he was a key person who had to be killed even before anybody else. So that's done now. Okay, the others, okay, they will hide somewhere in Qatar or somewhere else. It doesn't matter. They all will be found and killed.
Has Israel had other times in its history where the world was pissed off at it, like the 6 Day War or any of those wars? Did the world say, "Well, Israel, you're going too far"?
You mean Israel is not going too far?
No, like the world, the international opinion is the world is kind of pissed at Israel for being too mean to in Gaza. Has anything like Israel's been in a lot of wars.
You know what? I think American people, they're worried more about paying extra 10 cents for a gallon of gas. That's what they should be worried about. And Israel, it's not your business, period.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, like, in Sunday school, when I was a kid, we learned about all the wars. And we never learned what the world thought of them. We learned that Israel was attacked by various Arab countries and then responded and kicked butt and took a lot of territory. I remember when Israel was shaped like a pork chop because it had the whole Gaza Peninsula, whatever you call it. And, Israel eventually gave it back. But when that happened, what was world opinion about Israel?
The world opinion is nothing, really, because if you really want to go into it, all what's happened is that Israel, after 6 days war, eventually they gave Gaza to Egypt and West Bank to Jordan. Okay, so now Israel is no longer occupies all these lands. Now Egypt is in charge of Gaza, the Jordan is in charge of West Bank. Okay, go build a new state, do something there. Gaza should become a second Singapore, and the West Bank third Monte Carlo or something else. Do it. Israel has nothing to do with all that. But if the leadership of both Gaza and West Bank, all they care is about killing Israelis. There is no other purpose of their existence, just to keep killing Israelis. So what Israel has to do in this situation? Israel in this situation has to kill their leaders, all of them. And then maybe a coalition of Arab countries will put some kind of independent, peaceful government, and will try to help them to build a state or something.
So I've got a question for both of you.
Well, thanks for that question. One of the things that I've heard about, and I don't say that they are right or wrong, but it is part of the argument that people make in the whole journalism, and even to your point, Rick, in the whole debate space and everything, is that there has been throughout the world a rise in nationalism, and a lot of people will say that certain parts of Israel leadership are very nationalistic, and that they might even be considered more kind of ultra conservative than some of the past leadership, because there were definitely some leaders even in Israel that used to be considered more liberal and more moderate in their views, but nobody that I know of has ever said that Bibi is one of those. And there's that whole conversation as to whether they are going too far in their nationalistic views and everything. And I hear what you're saying, Sasha, and you probably think that it's not going far enough. I'm not going to put words in your mouth. You can say what you feel and everything, but that is part of the conversation that I'm hearing from various people, because I do have some friends that are in the global community, some from Africa, some from a number of other countries as well. And that is one of the questions that they ask, is if they are going too far. I mean, I think that's some of the questions that the UN has asked as well, because there has been a rise in nationalism throughout the world and throughout not just Israel, but a number of other places as well. So I don't know whether you think that that is fair. I'm not going to use the term that some people use and everything, because I think it can be a word that can be misinterpreted, and I'm not even sure that I know the definition totally and everything, but there are people that use that word that begins with a Z and all along those lines, and they can say that that word might be a little bit ultra conservative in the Israel and the Jewish camp. As I've told both of you before, I do have a future well, I guess technically my dad, if it goes ahead and marries her, that would be my stepmother and everything, that is of Jewish background and grew up in New York as a Jewish woman, and all along those lines is very active in that community and everything. But I just don't know. And even she has said that because she's a more liberal, she was, some people would call a liberal New York Jew and everything. But I don't know your stance on this whole notion of maybe there being that divide that exists in the Jewish community as well.
So Judaism is a religion that's officially divided into degrees of of observance. You got Reform Jews. I'm one of those. I barely ever go to temple. Then you have conservatives, and they probably, on average, a conservative family will go to temple on Friday night or Saturday morning. And then you have the Orthodox who worship every day. And then tied to that loosely are political stances.
Right.
The more Orthodox, generally, the more right-leaning. And then you probably, I don't know, Sasha knows better than me, you probably have different flavors of Zionism. You've got crazy Zionism that wants to take over the whole West Bank, and then the settlers and stuff, some of whom are like the MAGAs of Israel. And then you have like relaxed Zionism, which is you just want Israel to be able to, survive and thrive as a state without always being in a state of war. Sasha or anybody.
Kim joined us as well.
My opinion. Even if you will get now the most liberal government in Israel that you can think of, their aim will be the same: the defense of country and its population. And to succeed, you need to liquidate the leadership of the countries or entities or whatever there is that is threatening Israel. That's the only way how they can preserve its population and the country. Failing that, they have to expose themselves to future attacks, and they have to basically hide underground. They have to build some tunnels similar to what Gaza built and so on, and it will be sub-existence. If Israeli people are ready for that, then okay, no more wars, nobody kills anybody, we are at peace, we are hiding in tunnels, all the schools will be held in tunnels, and they will be hiding there for the next 35 years. That's the alternative. I don't think that Israelis will go for it. And in order to exist and not being scared to attacks, what they have to do, they have to liquidate the perpetrators. They have to liquidate people who are threatening these attacks and who manage to prepare these attacks, who supply the financing, who supply the weapons, who supply the actual soldiers who carry these attacks. That's the only way to do it. Okay.
Right,
Sasha, you were in the military, and I'm just trying to understand if I'm hearing you correctly and all along those lines, because you said this both about the Russian war, you said this about Israel and Palestine and everything, and I understand, even though I never did serve in the military, I do have relatives and friends that have and everything. So I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong and everything. In order for a war to end, whether it was ANC down there in South Africa, or whether it was Nigeria, which is in its own civil war, or whether it's a number of others, even the wars that are going on in South America and everything. If I'm hearing you correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, the only way for a war to end successfully is for the complete liquidation of the enemy, and there isn't any room for a
you see, the thing is that even if you will take United
States, you say this about both
it's
Russia
famous
and about
for, Mark, even if you'll take United States and its recent history, and not so recent, the way they operated always was to killing the opposition figures who were fighting U.S. government and its forces, and it's going from Noriega, it goes through Saddam Hussein, it goes through all kind of different people. The last one was the Trump liquidated this Iranian general, what was his name? I forgot his name, but so I think in 2020 they liquidated the very noted, I think it was number 2 in Iranian command. He was located in Syria, and that no, it wasn't Baghdadi. Baghdadi was also liquidated. No, there was somebody else, but it doesn't matter. The more they liquidate, the better. So this way, if you want to how to properly formulate. You can formulate it this way. If there is a possibility that somebody will shoot at you, and in the meantime you can shoot at your opponent, you better go and shoot at your opponent first. Okay. So if you have a power to liquidate your enemies, just do it. Not think, do it. That's a first rule. And in the Soviet army, the rule was first shoot, then ask the questions.
Kim,
I agree with that philosophy in many ways. I do know that in many cases in the time of war, or the strategy is to leave some people alive so that you can interrogate them. But I want to hear what Rick has to say. But
I want to go back to domestic politics, which is that right now, it's been a good couple of weeks for Harris and a terrible couple of weeks for Trump. What happens if that continues? Because what we've all seen over the past eight years is that Trump's followers he doesn't necessarily gain followers, and maybe some people peel off, and when people peel off because he's too crazy, that leaves the craziest of his followers. So what happens over the next 3 months if you've got...
One of the things that I don't know the answer to that, Rick, and everything, but it will be interesting, and I'll throw this out here as one that has done events and has definitely been part of the event planning and all along those lines. One of the pushbacks that Trump is given, and it could be a legitimate pushback, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about that because you're in Hollywood, is that sometimes as you know, because you've done events, I think even Sasha has done events because he's done chess tournaments and other things. I know Kim has done events, that you can be the undercard can actually steal the show and everything. And that's kind of what Trump is arguing took place at Kamala's last rally and everything, because everybody was coming there because Megan Thee Stallion is a very popular rapper, and apparently a lot of the crowd left after Megan Thee Stallion performed and didn't even hear Kamala's performance or speech and all along those lines. So
okay, sure.
The possibility that your undercard, or the people that are there to draw the people in, are the ones that are getting the people there, but then they leave, because apparently that's what happened in this particular round.
Fine. So, but whose mind is that? What you always have to ask is whose vote will change because of that? Who will listen to Trump saying, well, they came for Megan Thee Stallion and then they left? What kind of voter is going to be like, oh, well, then I guess I won't vote for Harris? Well, there's no logic to it. It's a desperate argument. And sure, I'm sure, like he said, and he makes a reasonable point, to go to a concert these days, it's at least $150 with parking and to get in the nosebleed seat. So yeah, but that doesn't impact the candidate. Who cares?
I would like to find out something, because I feel that there is a very substantial notion of whether she is Indian or she is black. Is it so important in American society whether the person is of Indian descent or black descent? And what is worse, to be Indian or to be black?
Well,
nobody gives again, it's one of those arguments like, who cares? They're just throwing everything out there hoping something sticks.
Well, they're throwing everything out there, but there is an old strategy that many people know, and it is a strategy that sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, and I'm sure that you know it as well and everything, Sasha, because like I said, I do know that your military background, and it's in one of the oldest strategies in the world, the strategy of divide and conquer. So if you have a group that is allied for whatever reason they are allied, which is what happens with a lot of the minority communities and everything, then if you can find a way to sow dissension into that, I think that that's part of what's going on with the border conversation, because they're hoping that people in the African American community will get so upset about these perceived Latin jobs that are being the perceived jobs taken by the Latin Americans that would exist in the African American community, even though I can tell you a number of those jobs, no brother or sister I know is trying to get those jobs. And I think the same thing is happening with this Indian conversation and everything. They're hoping to sow a seed of dissent and a seed of division. We talked about the divided nature of the America and everything, and part of that is intentionally sown. And so,
but Mark, explain to me one thing. Okay, so there are black jobs And the Latin people who are coming from South America, they are taking black jobs.
No,
Okay,
absolutely not.
that's
No,
what
that's
Trump
not.
is.
No,
That's,
no, 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 no.
but that's what
So
Trump is saying. He's saying he's a great divider. What he wants to do, he wants to divide black people from brown people. So black people, they have their black jobs, whatever they are. Now Latin people are coming from South America and they are taking over these black jobs. So now Latin people have black jobs and black jobs have nowhere to go. That's what Trump's is even if he's
that's
not
a very racist attitude.
it is. However,
Because
that's what
Yeah,
their
he's
but
jobs are
it's not.
jobs.
But
Jobs are
yeah,
jobs, and
and
everyone
it's not.
has a job.
It's
Well,
not going to
jobs are
work.
jobs.
It's not going to work. Nobody cares. And here I'm going to say
Well,
something
simple
racist.
minds, unfortunately, follow that. You
Yeah,
know,
I
people
think
who are
the,
not from this country and listen to that nonsense, they believe it. But fortunately, you know, people like Sasha don't. So
No, that's very
no,
true.
the-
But
the-
I
hold
got
on.
one thing. If there are black jobs, are there Indian jobs? Anybody can tell me?
I'm sure.
you know, are there
I'm
women
not-
jobs? My God, I need one.
Women
So go
jobs.
ahead.
I'm sure that Indian people are delighted to have Kamala Harris, regardless of what percent. Like it's ridiculous. The thing that may peel away some Latino people is some Latino people are highly Catholic and conservative, so abortion might be a thing. And then the jobs might be a thing to some extent, but not. It's not really anything that Trump can exploit with his talk.
well, they can't.
And let me say something racist right now, which is mixed race people on average seem to be very attractive. Obama, white mom, black dad, good looking guy. Kamala
Yeah.
Harris, mixed race. She's an attractive woman. And I think that's huge in American politics. When you look out,
It is huge in American politics, but I want to get to something else that's huge in American politics because I actually had an interesting conversation with one of my bosses, not you, Kim, but actually with one of my other jobs and everything, and she was actually raising an interesting point. But before I get to that question, I will say that there are, and everybody that studies statistics knows this, there are certain jobs that are stereotypically belong to one group or another. If you go to a cruise, and I've been on at least one, I know you've been on several, you'll find that a lot of people from Indonesia are usually working in a lot of maintenance and kind of like the staff, the service kind of parts of the staff. Is that correct? From what you remember?
yeah.
Sasha? And definitely the Latin Americans in a number of places are working behind the scenes at restaurants and everything. And a number of Indians are in high-tech jobs. I'm not saying all of them are, but there are a number of them that are in high-tech jobs. So there are these stereotypes that exist based on where people see people at, just like there are a number of jobs that are perceived as women jobs or African-American jobs or a number of other things based on the statistics. But one of the things that my other boss at the Hayti asked, and I'd love to hear y'all's thoughts about this, is I've heard a number of people say that if she picks Pete Buttigieg, that is too much for one ticket because that would be the whole black and Indian conversation. And hold on a second, and then you add to it the Hispanic vote and everything. But she is of the opinion, this particular coworker of mine, that this might actually be the day and time that this could actually be acceptable in a large portion of society because Gen Z and a lot of the younger people don't care as much about some of these divisive issues that other people have of other generations past, including.
Mark, you have a point is that if Trump is losing this election, it doesn't matter who is the vice president for Kamala. She can win this election with any vice president, including Buttigieg. And in fact, he's well spoken and I don't have anything against him.
He is a math genius and financial genius. And if you look at one of the debates a long time ago, when everyone else was answering blah, 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 he would give numbers. He would crunch the numbers and da 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 da. And if you do this, da 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 da, and he had the numbers. He literally had the numbers. And I don't understand why people put labels on things so much, as opposed to, if we did this like one of those TV shows where you don't see the person, but you just know what their data is and what they are accomplishing. But to see someone crunch numbers like that off the top of his head, he's brilliant. He is a brilliant man, and I agree that maybe it could be, but yeah, Rick
Well, he's incredibly well
makes him
spoken.
attractive.
He's but he not attractive as much as, he doesn't. I mean, I'm going to be bad again, and he doesn't read gay. He reads like a smart dude.
Yeah,
Steve Steve Kornacki, the stats guy on MSNBC. They always go to him. He's standing in front of a map and throwing a million numbers around.
Mhm.
That guy's gay too. Nobody knows that because he's the numbers guy. Nobody gives a dang about, and it's a weird thing. The more I think about it, like it's a weird thing that we arrange. Hold on, let me finish. That we arrange our lives around who gives us a boner.
But Rick, to that point and everything, one of the biggest people out there on the conservative side, and a number of people have said this, I've done some research on everything, but everybody talks about J.D. Vance and his mentor, who is Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is also part of the LGBTQI community, even though nobody acknowledges that, even though that's part of his whole...
Yeah, I got him totally confused with someone else. Sasha, what you got?
I know. I wanted to say something that I think it was in a debate in 2020 when Pete Buttigieg, he was invited on one of the talk shows, and he has to, and they said at what time he has to be there, and he has to, okay, let me ask my husband, and I'll let you know if I can attend it or not. So this is somewhat unusual twist in this. Not, I don't have anything against his husband. What's unusual about it that his husband will be supposedly what's Kamala's husband is. He's a first gentleman or something.
Second
So
gentleman.
now his husband will become what, second gentleman.
He'll become the second gentleman.
Gentleman, yeah. So there are some things that have to be sorted out, but nevertheless, he's a very capable candidate. But I think, in my opinion, I was very impressed, and I think that she will take him as a VP. Is governor of Minnesota, Walz. Now, what's happened is that both campaigns, see, the Buttigieg strong points that he's very good with numbers and he can explain almost anything to anybody. My opinion is that this election will be decided not on arguments concerning economy or anything substantial, because most of the people, some of them don't care about economy. Some people just don't understand the language to describe really what's happening. And it all will be decided probably on social media and who is more likable and so on. The Walz came with absolutely incredible thing. He called J.D. Vance weird. Then he called Trump weird. Then he said both of them are weird. And what's a very strong point of that weird word is that if you say, okay, you know nothing about economy, so you'll say, no, you're wrong, I know about economy, and I talk to this and such and such. So those are becoming an argument about whether this is right or that is right. Now, when you're saying the person is weird, how you could defend against accusation of being weird? Well, you're going to go to your doctor and say, oh, please give me a statement that I'm not weird. Oh, here is a statement. I was visiting my doctor and he said that I'm not weird. That's not going to work. So when all they have to do, Kamala Harris and your future vice president, is just say probably 15 times a day and 5 times a night that DJ Vance is weird, Trump is weird, and both of them are weird. It's the end of story. You don't need to worry about anything.
Weird. You have to be weird. But I do want to add something about a VP pick that had come up, and I thought very, very interesting, was that there's a financial rule, apparently, now, this was just a day ago, that bars contributions to the ticket featuring a sitting governor. So I don't know what's going on there. I know that people were digging around to see how that rule applies here, whether, a sitting governor, and that might have been why, Cooper sat down because I think he is a sitting governor, but I think that they want to see if that rule applies. I love Mark Kelly. I think Mark Kelly is a beautiful candidate. Like, he is well spoken, has served his country tremendously. His wife was nearly assassinated. They go after the gun laws. I think they're really passionate about that cause. I think he brings a lot. Whether he will be picked, I don't know, because he tends to be overshadowed by this guy named Shapiro that I don't know. But anyway,
but they're all normal. None of them are weirdos, which is like the Democrats have a deep bench of normal people. But plus, if you pick Mark Kelly, you get two guys for one, because he's an identical twin. His identical twin can make you double he can show up other places and
double trouble. He's in space. No, he's not.
But one thing I would like to say in addition about the Walz is that he is a guy, he has military background, he is well-spoken and a very smart guy. Plus, he will bring Minnesota to Democrats. Probably they will take it anyway, but it will bring for sure. One thing is that he is not scared of saying to Trump and J.D. Vance in their faces what a horrible losers both of them are, what phonies they are, and he can say it right into their face. This what, of course, Biden couldn't do it, even in his best.
Biden wouldn't do it, but Kamala also did it.
Walz, he can do it.
No, because Kamala just recently came out and basically told Trump to bring it, which means that if you got this to say it in my face and everything. So he basically told him that if you want to, then name the place and the time, and I'll debate you. And if you got this to say to me, say it to my face.
So I think Trump and Vance are scrambling for anything like this accusation that they cut a sweetheart deal with the 911 terrorist, when it was the Department of Defense that's been doing the interrogations and everything. I don't think that they had anything to do with it, because some things you leave to the Department of Defense. I am appalled that it's been over 20 years and they're still talking with the terrorist. But I think keeping them alive is more punishment to them than executing them, because if you execute them in their brain, they get to go to their heavenly host. So
coming back to that issue of Kamala Harris being either black or Indian or both or whatever, I think it's another plot of Trump to denigrate her as saying that, is she black? Not really, because she's half of the Indian. So she's neither black, she's neither Indian, she's neither white, or she's neither Jewish, because she's not Jewish. Her husband is Jewish, but it doesn't matter. So basically, it's a way to cancel her, period. She's not here, she's not there, so she's nobody.
Well, they're going to try to target a number of things. They're also going to try to target her very activist, because she has two stepdaughters, but one of them is very much of an activist, and she's also very much into her culture. I want to say she might even be a creative and an artist in one sort or another. I know she's very much into tattoos, because she's a tattooed woman and all along those lines. So I've already heard there have been people that have been cracking on her and her activism, because I think she started her activism even before she got Kamala as her mama-la, or her.
Again, whose mind does it change? And speaking of minds being changed, if you look at approval polls, they ask about Trump, about Biden, about Harris a few times a week. There are dozens of polling companies, and they ask, do you approve or disapprove of these people? And Trump, his net disapproval has shrunk by 3% in the past 2 months, because he survived an assassination attempt and they had the Republican National Convention. So he got a bump. Kamala Harris, in the past 3 weeks, her net disapproval has gone from 17 to under 7. It's the fastest change, I think, in the history of polling that I could find.
I think that one, she's given the Democrat Party a breath of fresh air. They were stagnant. Everybody was upset over Biden not budging. But all of a sudden, there's this energy. I mean, I'm on the train coming back from Wilmington, Delaware, where it all happened. Like, I mean, I was there for another reason, but my God, she was right there. And all of this came, and the energy on the train was different. Like, you could just feel people going, I'm so interested in this. Going up there was just, blah, blah, blah. But coming back, you could hear the young people go, wow, we actually have, somebody worth, whether they were Republican or Democrat. I even, talked to two girls and they were more independent. They're like, my God, we finally got somebody, and the energy is just different because.
Shaq is always, even a couple of months ago or so, there was an opinion about 70% of Americans, they were getting sick and tired of having another rematch of Trump and Biden because they're both old, they're nothing new, they're not bringing anything to the table or so. So, of course, it was wishful thinking, except that there is no longer Biden is in the race. No. But Trump still is this old, phony scam. He is still in a race and he has nothing new to bring.
I mean, nobody's even brought up, has he paid his taxes?
We had a couple of questions in chat that we didn't get to and everything because he was making the comment that some of his followers are anti-deep state, upset at all the corruption in the federal agencies. And he also said that she switches to pander depending on who she's talking to. And he said, what is a black job? What's a white job? And then he said, crunching numbers just means you can memorize, not that you know how to apply. And the last thing he says is who is drawing larger crowds, Trump or Kamala and everything. So there is that question as well. So I don't know if anybody wants to respond to that.
Well, Trump lies about crowd size a lot.
Yeah, he does.
And the Democrats are always saying, when they're called out for saying, well, look how many Trump got, they're saying, well, our guy doesn't need to draw crowds. We don't need to fly huge flags. We don't need to, turn our trucks into, and so, each side tries to, but I think she will pull decent crowds. But I wanted Shaq, when he's on the show, often asks, as an Australian, he asks the Americans, why are you guys so divided? And I would argue that some of it is the sportification of politics, that we've started to root for our party the way we root for, our team. And that allows for a lot of trash talking and delusions, like this year, the Super Bowl. And remember by like 12 years ago, Linsanity, where on the Knicks, there was this kid who went to Harvard, Asian kid, and then all of a sudden started kicking ass. And the New York went crazy because it was out of left, an unexpected guy out of left field, lighting up teams all over the place. And, that's the same with Harris. She's a little bit unexpected and she's bringing it.
She's brilliant too. And a lot of people don't realize she's actually just this week accomplished some amazing things that, we had a little bit of a challenge because Trump had dismantled a lot of these programs. But this week alone, she has managed to put some programs back into place and up the game for them to help people who are struggling right now financially. And she's going to continue working on these things because I think she can relate to what people are really struggling with, as opposed to Trump, who, fakes it. He has no idea what people struggle with. He has no idea. He has no idea that, I go to work every day and my job got outsourced, that I paid tremendous for my education, and my husband did too, and his job got outsourced to another country, and then that company gets a tax credit because the Republicans decide to give them tax credits. But go ahead.
I'd like to mention something what nobody really pays attention to. The stakes in that election are absolutely incredible. For Kamala Harris, if she wins election, she's becoming president of the United States. Now, if she's losing this election, she's still senator, She is a former vice president, and she has a great future ahead of her, maybe in 4
no
years
matter what.
later. Okay. Now, let's talk about Trump. If he wins, he becomes president, he was already president 4 years ago, so he will another 4 years. That's great. Now, what's happened to Trump if he's losing election? Guess what? All the lawsuits, the reform of Supreme Court is next. Even before Biden will leave the office, that reform will go underway, especially if Democrats will win Senate and the House. Then it's a done deal. Period. So if Trump has no immunity, and he has, I don't know how many lawsuits, the civil lawsuits and criminal lawsuits and indictments, just nobody can count anymore what he has. So the guy is in jail. Sooner or later, it's going to happen. So the stakes are extremely high.
Well, and
Why Trump can get into violence.
Right.
Simply because to save his ass.
So they are grappling too to find anything to crush Kamala by saying, years ago they were asking a question and she was supportive of convicts, terrorists, getting to vote from prison. But that's not what she said. They said, do you believe in this? And her comeback was, let's have a conversation about it. But nobody would converse with her about it. So, but her, I would say that to my kids. If they bring me something that sounds utterly ridiculous, I would come back with it. Let's talk about this. It doesn't mean I agree with it just because you want to talk about it. It means that you want to hash out, why do you think something's so stupid? So, I don't think that Trump literally said racial discriminating comments last night. Like he racially, tried to degrade this woman. And I think that was wrong. But, Kamala, her answer was, let's talk about this. And they think that she agreed to it. And then she doesn't. She doesn't agree to these things. And she did not negotiate a sweetheart deal. But they're grappling. They're looking for anything, any kind of dirt. Meanwhile, while J.D. Vance is out there making all these accusations, he should have been back in his office voting on some of the things that we need to close the border, because she was submitting a nonpartisan policies, and Trump is sitting there going, don't vote for it. If you vote for it, da, 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 da. He's trying to stop them from closing up some of the border issues that we need, and she's working on it. And and JD should be there doing that, and he's not.
He's not capable of doing anything.
He's not, exactly.
Exactly. So
beyond his ability.
Harris has the same thing that Obama had politically, which is neither of them served their full term as senators. Obama, I think, 4 years, Harris 4 years before becoming VP. And that's an advantage when you compare him to Hillary, who had a 30-year history in politics, starting in Arkansas, and with land deals and like getting in trouble because she dissed people who stay home and make cookies. And then she started having to make cookies, and she just had this, secretary, she had this long record that, the Republicans could fairly or unfairly pick apart for a ton of dirt. She's got less dirt. She was buckled, you can attack her record of her 27 years in law enforcement. You can say she was too lenient. You can say she was too tough, but she was, a law enforcement person for 27 years. You can't attack the job itself.
No, he's definitely had that job and everything.
When people try to put her down,
we had another question which a number of Republicans asked, because they do try to paint her with the baggage that Biden has and everything. So Lee was saying, speaking of scams, why did the Democrats throw all of the Biden voters under the bus and ignore their primary votes, which is his notion that they kind of just shifted it all to Kamala after Biden stepped down and everything. I don't think that's quite what happened, but if y'all have a response to Lee and all along those lines, that's his.
Well, I was very staunch on Biden. When Biden dropped out, I lost $200 because I kept betting on Biden $2 at a time because the odds were good.
Yeah.
And I'm sad I lost $200, but I'm I'm happier that we have a viable candidate. And
Oh, me too.
I think 90% of Biden voters, maybe more, are.
But I want to address an issue that keeps coming up that I think annoys me. But, they keep trying to put her down for various different things, like a secondary or second-rate law school, or, that she failed a test. Well, we all know the true success are the people who've had many failures. Lincoln failed getting into the presidency many, many times. Many scientists failed a lot of their experiments before something came about. But what I want to say is it has nothing to do with where you got your education. What it has to do with is how you apply it. But I will also add this, and I know I'm going to piss off a lot of people right now, but I do that anyway. If you want somebody to sit around and talk about it, hire somebody from Yale and Harvard, because they're going to sit around and talk about it. But if you want the job done, hire somebody from the other schools, because they have to work to prove themselves. They don't have a titled school getting them into doors. What they have to do is prove themselves and work harder. And I know this for a fact. So a lot of times but if I look at someone, I'm not going to hire them based on what college they went to. I am going to hire someone based on how they've applied their education.
And by the way, Howard, where she went undergrad, the second rate is HCBU. HBCU. Sorry, I got the initial.
One of the top HBCU. Central is also considered a top HBCU in terms of law school. So to consider it second rate when even one of our governors, I think Roy Cooper, one of the other ones, went there as well. So it is not, even though it's a historically black college and university, a number of people got their minority scholarship and got a chance to go there. And it has some amazing professors, some that I know individually and everything. And I can tell you that they don't drag their feet in terms of the way that they train their law students that then go off and become successful lawyers and all along those lines. I did have another issue I was going to get to politics, because one of the things we've talked about is there is a major event that is going on. Some people say that it is in the past has been political. We know there have been tragedies there, such as what happened in Munich in the early 70s and all along those lines. But I saw a very wonderful picture, and it kind of plays to what I think the Olympic spirit is supposed to be about. But I'd love to hear your thoughts, because there are two Koreans, and there was a picture that I was watching yesterday where it was the North Koreans and the South Koreans, and both won, I think, individual medals in their respective sports and everything, and they were taking selfies and actually bonding, even though we know their countries are actually at war with each other, and are definitely, one is very communistic and the other is definitely more of a capitalist whole notion of actually being there together and everything. And he is asking why is there so much hate in the Olympics, but there's also a lot of positive things going on in the Olympics. And I was impressed with Ledecky and her way she just smashed her opponents in the 1500, and there have been others as well. As like I told Sasha, I was proud of the Ukrainian. They won her medal in fencing and all in that space. But we are seeing a lot of positive in what I think is the true Olympic spirit.
Let's talk about a controversy. There was, in women's boxing, an Italian boxer got quickly thrashed by a very masculine looking female boxer, and all the right wingers plus J.K. Rowling are going crazy, saying they let a trans the boxing with a woman, which is not true. I think the manly woman is from Albania, where it's illegal to be trans. She's physically a woman. She has like a genetic glitch or a hormonal glitch where she's XY, which is genetically male, but her body can't use testosterone or whatever, so it never turned male. She's physiologically female. She might even be able to have a kid. And so there's a bunch of arguing. She's a woman. And the Olympic Committee ruled, yeah, she's a woman. Though I think some other committee, when she was boxing someplace else, ruled that she could, it's a big mess that's highly politicized.
I think, there are so many things going on that people are not just sitting back and enjoying the Olympics for what they should be enjoyed for. And that is just watching some people who've put their whole heart and soul and life into doing these great feats and competing, and nobody's enjoying it. Everything is a political issue, and I think that's very disappointing. You know,
Because even
when I was in college, I bounced a bar, and my girlfriend was also a bouncer at the same bar. And she had a ton of testosterone, and it made it very exciting and a little bit but she was a better bouncer than I was. She could wrap people up and just take them down, and she had to keep taking them down because they go down and they're drunk, and they'd look up and they'd see that a woman had taken them down. They're like, that doesn't make sense. They tried to get up and boom, down again. And just so I've known a bunch of people, some people, a lot of them guys, just naturally have high levels of testosterone, and it leads to interesting stuff. But there's a ground, like certain conservatives like to say there are men and there are women, but no, there are people in the middle.
There are people in the middle.
Yeah,
I think there are very much people in the middle, and for years the Olympics would test just for women only. They used to do a blood test, or there was some other test that they would do, or what they call peak between the legs. And they did this for many, many years, just women competitions only. And eventually they put a stop to that. I forget what year that was, but they eventually put a stop to it because they said that the blood test and all these other tests really weren't 100%. And the other testing, they stopped. Here's what I think. Weight and class, right? I mean, I think there's a lot to be said. And I know men in general could be underweight and still have more muscle and stronger. But I think there's a weight and class that maybe eventually as humans that we'll move to, but we're humans when it all is said and done, we're humans. So.
Except not in the future. Things are going to get crazy because we're going to have all sorts of ways to modify people. Right now,
weird.
If you're rich and you have a kid, say you're 6'4", your wife is 5'11", and you want to have a kid who's 6'8" or 6'10", so they can do pro sports, you can spend a bunch of money, and as they're growing up, get them shot full of synthetic HGH, and you can, for a couple $100,000, you can buy them 3 extra inches.
Right. And what else I think is very disturbing is all of these supposed Christians, they put the people down who want to have the sex changes, all of that surgery, altering your body. And I look at a lot of them, which I know have had a lot of plastic surgery, and I go, and what about altering your body? How is that any different? Did that make you feel good? Did it make you feel better to make that alteration? These people have a right to alter anything that they want as an adult. And I just think it's none of people's business. Mind your own businesses.
I've done the same thing.
I would like to mention something very interesting. There is no advantage transgenders have in chess. So if a person transgender and he's now want to play for a women's team, he will have no advantage whatsoever. He can be very big, he can muscular, he can do anything.
Chess is the perfect.
Help him.
Chess is the perfect game.
Everything, even people make arguments as to whether women are better chess players or men or all of that, but that's irrelevant. I was going to say as we get ready to wrap up and all along those lines that if you want to, Rick, if you get a chance, go back and watch yesterday's online dinner party, which is the other show that I do, one of the other ones. But there was a gentleman who is of the opinion that all this political talk is nonsense, because he is a supporter of a book called The Last Harvest. And the notion is that in his mind, there are a number of internment camps that we'll all be staying in, because he's signaling that we're all going to be stamped in a way with this genetic stuff that Elon Musk is part of, and all of those lines. And
that's mentioned in the book of Revelation at the end of the Bible, that that everybody will get, and that's, and so that shows up in the Bible also shows up in science fiction, where if AI decides that we're a nuisance, it might do. So yeah, I mean, the future's
I
crazy.
think we're going to build our own exterminator, and it's going to exterminate us. So, but unfortunately, we're at the hour and we gotta go. And we'll thank you for watching, and we'll see you Tuesday.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.